So I'm Bethany Freel. I'm going to talk about some fundamentals of training. Who here has seen The Office? Michael Scott? So I apologize if you haven't, but so I'm going to start with a quote from him. And if you haven't, this is definitely some dry humor and irony, but this quote is pretty awesome. So he goes, "Wikipedia is the best thing ever. Anyone in the world can write anything they want about any subject. So you know you are getting the best possible information." So, of course, this is funny because it's totally ironic, and unfortunately, especially in today's technology society, it's kind of true. We kind of believe whatever we read, especially in exercise. So what I want to do today is address some common training practices that seem to be especially popular in today's society, but can actually be counterproductive to the full training community. But in order to do that, to effectively talk about how to train in full, we kind of got to understand how our body works. Because if we can tell people how to train, but if you really want to know how to train best, you got to understand how it works, right? And then you can figure out everything yourself. So, in order to make this fun and encouraging, I have some books here, and so I'm going to make this interactive. I'm going to ask you guys questions, and whoever can answer them, I'm going to give you a free book. Sound cool? All right. So, first question. What substance does skeletal muscle require as fuel for contraction? Now, I'm not talking about hint number one. It's not a food substance, so not carbohydrate, not fat, not glucose. This is a fundamental substance that our body uses as energy. Anybody? Calories, not calories. Protein, not calcium, although that's getting there. Nope. 3-letter acronym. Nope. ATP. Come and get your book. Anybody know what ATP stands for? Yeah, that's close. Adenosine triphosphate. So adenosine triphosphate is a molecule in our body made of adenosine, big molecule, and 3 phosphates. So there's a big molecule and 3 smaller ones, all connected together with chemical bonds. And so what our body does is one of those phosphates, it gets broken off. And if you imagine a pencil being broken, it makes a loud snap, right? And little pencil shards get shattered everywhere. That's energy. So when a phosphate bond gets broken off, energy gets released. And our muscles harness that energy, and it's used to flex the muscle. So that's what happens in our body. ATP gets broken, and our bodies use that energy to flex our muscles. Pretty cool, huh? So, if we don't get ATP from food, and it gets broken down to fuel muscle contraction, what process does our body use to restore ATP, to make it? If we don't get it from food, metabolism, yes. We hear that word a lot, right? Metabolism. So that's the process that our body uses to make ATP. So, our bodies have a very limited supply of ATP. There's not a whole lot stored. So depending on how we're using our bodies to perform, the demand of ATP has to be met with the supply. So if we're using a lot of ATP really fast, our body has to make a lot of ATP really fast at the same time. So, another question. What are the 2 main types of metabolism? There's 2 different types. What was that? What? Anaerobic and aerobic, yes. You guys are killing it, I'm impressed. So, next question. What is the most significant difference between the two? And hint, I'm not looking for oxygen or no oxygen. Yes! Oh my gosh, I'm so impressed with you guys. So, the most significant difference between anaerobic and aerobic metabolism is the rate of energy production and efficiency. So, anaerobic performance produces ATP. Remember, that's the energy we have to contract our muscles. Anaerobic metabolism produces ATP really fast, but it only produces a little bit of it. So, a little bit really fast. Aerobic metabolism produces it really slowly, but it produces a lot of it. Makes sense? So rate of ATP production and how much of it. Anaerobic, really fast, not very much. Aerobic, really slow, a whole lot of it. So a good way to think of this is like nitrous in a street racing car, anaerobic, get up and go, and horse and buggy going on the Oregon Trail. All the way across the United States, that's aerobic. Nitrous car only can go down the street really, really fast. So another question. Which metabolic system is generally dominant in pull? Anaerobic. Want to pass her back pull? Or our book? So that is because fast ATP production for short durations, right? If we're on a pull here, we're not on there for 2 hours chugging along, right? We're doing high intensity strength power applications. We're that nitrous. We're doing heavy, high intensity stuff. All right, which metabolic system is dominant in endurance training? Like jogging, elliptical, marathon running, all that. Which metabolic system? Aerobic, right? I saw you raise your hand. Were you going to say aerobic? Yeah, okay. So, what does any of this have to do with how we effectively train for pull? Well, it comes down to what we call the principle of specificity. This means the body adapts to optimize the physiological, meaning the body systems that are stressed. So when we train our bodies to use an energy system, so the metabolic system, anaerobic or aerobic, when we train it over and over again, it starts to adapt so that it can do a better job of whatever it's been trained to do, right? So it gets the idea that, okay, this is happening a lot, I need to make adjustments so that I get better at doing whatever I'm doing a lot. So, let's make another question here. What are some physiological, so some physical body adaptations of anaerobic training? So remember, anaerobic training, pull, what are some adaptations that happen in our body from that type of training? Muscle gain. So, in the training world, what we'd call that is hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is we have growth in our muscles, and there's different types of hypertrophy. In anaerobic training, we usually have type 2 fiber hypertrophy. Now here I'll make this into a question. What types of fibers do we have, muscle fibers? Anybody know? Slow twitch and fast twitch, right? There's type 1 and type 2. I'll get you a book. Type 2, anaerobic. Type 1, aerobic. So if we're training anaerobically, we're going to get type 2 hypertrophy or type 2 muscle growth, like you said, right? If we're training aerobically, we'll get a little bit of type 1 hypertrophy. Now, if we want to get really good at pull, do we want slow twitch hypertrophy? No, right? Because we want nitrous, we want power, right? We don't want to be just like horse and buggy. So that's a great one. Any other physiological adaptations of anaerobic? Anybody else have any ideas other than muscle growth? Respiratory? Yes, that's actually a great one. Most people don't think about that. Capillary, mitochondrial density. There's increased acidosis buffering. You know, when you get the burn, you don't get the burn so much as you get better and better and better. So your body gets better at buffering that. Like we talked about, increased fast twitch recruitment of your muscle fibers. So all kinds of great things that happen that make you better at the anaerobic system. Any ideas about physical adaptations of aerobic training? What was that? Burning fat. I'm actually going to talk about that if I get a little bit more. That there is some truth to that. Fatty acids are only burned in oxidation, which is aerobic metabolism. Yes, I'll give you a book for that. But that doesn't mean you have to train aerobically to burn fat. Okay. So this is going to be a fun one to talk about. Does cardio make a better polar? I've heard different people talk about different things up here about this. Okay, to clarify, cardio. The word cardio comes from the Greek word cardia with a K, and all that means is heart. So when people say, I'm doing cardio, what they really mean is they're going to go train aerobically. And what I mean by, does it make a better polar? I'm talking about not like dance. I'm talking about anaerobic polar. So aerobic training, like we said, creates physiological adaptations, right? They're advantageous to aerobic training. Unfortunately, they create some adaptations in the body that are actually counterproductive to anaerobic training, which is pull. So you train aerobically, your body adapts, and now you have adaptations that are actually counterproductive to anaerobic training, pull. Anybody have some ideas of what those could be? Anybody? Muscle loss. Believe it or not, that is true. And so there's several studies that talk about this. So two things about that. Impediment of muscular growth. So not just loss, but impediment. There's certain signals in your body that after a stimulus will tell your body, okay, I need to grow. Muscles need to grow. Now if you train a lot aerobically, those signals get blunted. So your body doesn't know to grow anymore. Which makes sense, right? If you think about a marathon runner, they don't need to get real big. So your body doesn't need to grow, so it tells it, hold off, don't need to get big here. And then actual muscle loss. There's lots of studies about, it's called myofibril sloughing. There's these things inside your muscle fibers. They're these little tiny things that actually squeeze together. They squeeze your muscle together, that actually squeeze it together. They're called myofibrils. And in order to optimize oxygen uptake in aerobic training, they'll start to slough off. And once again, you go back to comparing a marathon runner and a bodybuilder. They look completely different, right? Because they train differently. Their bodies are like, okay, I need to go one way. And that's all there is to it. So yeah, you can have muscle loss if you train a lot aerobically. Any other ideas? All right, we talked about fiber type shift ratios, hypertrophy of different types of fibers. We talked about, we didn't really talk about this too much, decreases in power generating capacity. Same types of things, right? And they're all sort of intuitive. If you train a lot aerobically, you're more of the horse and buggy. You can go a long ways, but you're not going to have that super power.